My mother had always seen my younger brother as the son, and I was merely a shadow, a presence she tolerated but never truly acknowledged. But on my 22nd birthday, she did something extraordinary. She journeyed from the local temple on her knees, a grueling pilgrimage of piety, all to bring me a simple red cord bracelet. She told me it was a charm, a ward to keep me safe and secure. The gesture, so out of character, so seemingly selfless, moved me to tears. I slipped it onto my wrist and swore I would never remove it. From that day forward, my life began an inexplicable downward spiral. Every opportunity soured, every effort failed. Conversely, my brother Caleb's fortunes skyrocketed. He launched a successful company fresh out of college, a feat that seemed impossible. It all came to a head when he was late paying his employees. One of them, desperate and vengeful, came looking for him. I was caught in the crossfire, a knife plunging into my chest as my brother watched unharmed. Just as my vision faded, I heard my mother's relieved whisper. It turned out Caleb had a red cord bracelet too. His was the parent charm, and mine was the child charm. The wearer of the parent charm could siphon the luck and fortune from the child, swapping their fates. When my eyes fluttered open again, I was standing in that same room on that same day, my mother holding out the red cord. A cold, bitter laugh escaped my lips. I turned, took the bracelet, and tied it securely around the leg of my frail, sickly dog. If she wanted to swap fortunes, then so be it. Let's see how she liked swapping for his poor health. This time I decided we would play this game out slowly. The day I was murdered by my brother's disgruntled employee, I felt the warm gush of my own blood spill from the wound in my neck. My mother's focus was entirely on Caleb, her arms wrapped around him protectively. She watched the police subdue the attacker and said, her voice trembling with relief, "Thank goodness for that luck-swapping bracelet. Otherwise, that knife would have been meant for you, wouldn't it?" She never once looked at me, her dying daughter. My entire life had been a script written by others, a series of manipulations I couldn't accept. I prayed for just one more chance. When I awoke, I was back on the day she gave me the red bracelet. My mother stood before me, her face etched with exhaustion from her pilgrimage, yet her eyes glinted with an excitement she couldn't conceal. "Alara, sweetheart, this is the red cord Mom got for you, kneeling every single step of the way. Wear it, and it will guarantee you a life of peace, prosperity, and good luck." She gently tapped her aching legs with her hand, then presented me with the plain, unremarkable-looking cord. "This is your birthday present from me. You have to wear it every day. If you take it off, it won't work anymore." My brother Caleb stood nearby, his face a mask of manufactured envy. "Put it on, sis. I don't even have one. This is Mom's special gift, just for you." They painted such a beautiful picture. In my last life, I had fallen completely for their performance. I desperately believed that my mother, who had always so blatantly favored Caleb, would, for once, choose me. I believed that after 22 years of never receiving a single gift from her, she had experienced a sudden, genuine surge of motherly love. Having been starved of familial affection my entire life, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. I accepted the bracelet without a flicker of suspicion. In the end, my birthday present became my death warrant. Looking at their faces now, their feigned concern barely masking their palpable eagerness, I had to physically restrain myself from lunging at them, from bringing us all down in a storm of rage. Instead, I took the red cord, my eyes welling with calculated tears. I stretched my lips into the widest smile I could manage. "Mom, you're too good to me. I'll wear it every single day. But I haven't showered yet today. I'll put it on right after I wash up." My mom's smile widened, and she urged me again. "You better not forget." I nodded obediently. She was still anxious, stressing the point over and over. "Don't you forget. If you put it on too late, it won't be effective." I smiled and agreed. This time we would play this game out slowly. I understood perfectly why they insisted I wear it by the next day. The GREs were scheduled for the day after tomorrow. In my past life, I had worn the red cord, and Caleb had successfully swapped his abysmal fortune with my promising one. Just before the exam, a splitting headache had descended upon me. I forced myself into the exam hall but could barely function, scoring a pathetic 100 points and failing miserably. Meanwhile, Caleb, who had never cracked a book, scored an astonishing 430. He went from a community college nobody to an Ivy League prospect overnight. After that, our paths diverged completely. Despite my degree from a top university, I couldn't secure a job. Every attempt to retake the exam was sabotaged by some unforeseen disaster. My brother, however, was on an unstoppable ascent, eventually launching his own company and becoming a local business magnate. My mother became more convinced than ever that only sons could achieve greatness. She told anyone who would listen that she had been right to favor Caleb all along, that boys were simply more intelligent and capable. Caleb grew more arrogant than ever. The sister who relatives once praised for her brilliance was now a complete failure in his eyes. When he learned I couldn't find work, he offered, with a smirk, "I'll give you 500 a month. Come work as a janitor at my company." The cruelty of it broke my heart. When I was in college, my mom had pleaded poverty and refused to give me an allowance. I tutored to support myself, earning $1,000 a month. In my naivety, I thought my brother was struggling too, so I sent him $500 every month. He accepted it every single time, never once mentioning that our mother was secretly giving him $2,500 a month. Even when his negligence led to my death, he felt no remorse. He was only concerned that a death at his company would negatively impact his stock price. This time, he wouldn't get the chance to be so smug. That night, after I showered, my little dog Max immediately trotted over and rubbed against my feet. I stroked his soft head affectionately. In my last life, when the employee attacked me, Max was the only one who tried to protect me. He was killed with a single, brutal slash of the knife. I gently lifted his front paw and tied the red cord bracelet around it. The fluffy white fur instantly concealed it from view. I had found Max as a stray, and despite the best care, his early life of hardship had left him frail and chronically ill, constantly in and out of the vet's office. Caleb, on the other hand, was lazy and dull-witted, but my mother had spoiled him rotten since birth. All the best food was shoveled onto his plate. He was built like a small tank. In my previous life, I had swapped fortunes with him, taking his disasters and giving him my life. So, in this life, let him take the disasters from my dear Max. The next morning, my mom and Caleb were up unusually early, waiting right outside my door. "We were waiting for you for breakfast, sweetheart," Mom said, though her eyes were constantly darting toward my wrist. I stretched my arm out casually, making sure the red cord tied to my right wrist was clearly visible. Her face immediately split into a massive grin. My brother audibly sighed in relief. He flopped onto the sofa and started playing games on his Switch. "The GREs are just around the corner, Mom. I'm definitely getting into Harvard. Just need to relax a bit first," Caleb declared, saying the exact same thing as last time, his puffy face filled with an unearned confidence. Mom beamed with pride. "I believe in my son. He'll definitely get into Harvard and shove it in the faces of all those relatives who look down on him." With that, she brought Caleb a bowl of greasy meat soup, her face a picture of adoration. "My poor Caleb has gotten so thin studying for the exams. You need to eat up." I wasn't surprised. The food in this house was never meant for me. My dad died when we were young, and from that day on, my mother never let me eat at the table with them. I was only allowed to pick at the leftovers after they were finished. We shared a mother, but I grew up malnourished while Caleb was obese. The 300-pound thin Caleb took the soup and gulped it down, swallowing the fatty meat almost without chewing. He then shot me a triumphant, mocking glare. "Just you watch. Mom said I was always smarter than you. I was just letting you win before. Now I'm about to get serious. You're going to be left in my dust." He stared at me, his short, thick neck stretching in excitement as he licked the last drop of soup from the bowl, utterly convinced of his victory. On the day of the GREs, I woke up bright and early and prepared to head to the testing center. As I was leaving, Caleb stumbled out of the master bedroom yawning. Seeing me on my way out, he looked at me with disdain. "A genius always makes a grand entrance. You'll see, soon I'll be accepted to Harvard. From community college to Harvard, reporters are going to want to interview me." I smiled. "You're right, just wait. Wait until you finish your exam. I can't wait to hear you lose your mind." This time there was no headache, no fever. I completed every section of the exam with a clear mind and a steady hand. When I returned home, I found Caleb looking like his world had crumbled. My mom's face was grim. They were huddled together, so engrossed in their panic that they didn't even notice me come in. They were staring at the red cord on his wrist. My mom was bewildered. "You're saying you did badly? That's impossible. Your father relied on this red cord to swap luck with someone and make his fortune." Caleb nodded, his face contorted with resentment. "It was all Dad's greedy friend's fault. He was so rich, but wouldn't share a dime with Dad. Dad had no choice but to use the red cord to swap their fortunes. But then the guy jumped off a building and killed himself, causing the backlash to kill Dad." My mom started cursing. What a weakling. We just wanted his good luck with gambling. Who knew he'd kill himself after losing it all and going bankrupt? The red cord has a backlash. What if I triggered the conditions for the backlash? I furrowed my brow in mock concern. They were, after all, my family. Ruining their scheme and punishing them was one thing, but a backlash that could kill them? That was a bit too perfect. Could things possibly get any better? I deliberately made my footsteps heavier. When they heard me, they rushed over. My mother, who usually ignored my existence, now wore a strained smile. "Sweetheart, you're back. How did the exam go?" Caleb also looked at me, his eyes full of anxious hope. Seeing their desperation, I couldn't possibly let them down. I sighed heavily, covering my face with my hands, as my shoulders began to tremble. I don't know what happened. The second I walked into the exam room, my head started pounding. I could barely hold my pen. I'm sure I totally bombed it. My mom and Caleb exchanged a look, and I could see the pure, unadulterated ecstasy in their eyes. Caleb could barely contain himself, whispering in our mom's ear, "That's it! That's it! The symptoms match that other guy's. The red cord worked." All his anxiety vanished in a puff of smoke. Mom threw her arms around Caleb. "Good boy, I knew you could do it." Just like last time, even before the results were released, they were itching to announce his success to the world. Mom said proudly, "We'll invite all the relatives over right away to celebrate Caleb getting into Harvard." Caleb held his head high. "Let them look down on me now. I'll show them." This scene was achingly familiar. The exact same conversation had happened in my previous life. Caleb had been spoiled rotten and was a terrible student. After high school, our family had to pay a hefty sum to get him into a private community college. Last time, I thought celebrating so early was a terrible idea. His academic ineptitude was common knowledge, and the claim was simply not believable. I had gently suggested they wait for the official scores. They ganged up on me, berating me for it. Mom had screamed that I was jealous and couldn't stand to see my brother succeed. She'd asked if I thought I was so smart just because I'd gotten lucky and was valedictorian in high school. Later, when the results came out and Caleb had, to everyone's shock, actually gotten into Harvard, my mother forced me to kneel and apologize to him in front of all our relatives. When I refused, she disowned me. This time, facing the same situation, I smiled brightly and encouraged them. "Mom, you're so right. Caleb is so accomplished, we have to throw a party. Not just any party, a huge one." Hearing this, my mom's smile grew even wider. She glanced at me and said sarcastically, "Don't say Mom plays favorites and isn't throwing you a party. You're not as smart as your brother. You just got lucky in college. Grad school tests real ability, and you're definitely not up to it." Then, as if remembering something, she added in a sickly sweet tone, "Besides, the red cord Mom got you was from kneeling every step of the way. That's something you can't buy with anything." I nodded enthusiastically. Yep, you're right about everything." My mom was taken aback by my compliance. She muttered awkwardly, "You'll see when you can't get in anywhere." In the end, they chose the day the scores were released to host a grand banquet for all our relatives, wanting to flaunt their success just like last time. My normally frugal mother booked 28 tables in front of our house in our small town. To save money, she crammed 12 people at each table, but only served 5 cold vegetarian dishes. Some distant relatives began to mutter under their breath. "What kind of banquet is this? Just a few paltry dishes. My mom overheard and immediately erupted, lifting her chin with contempt. You should be grateful you're even invited to eat at a Harvard genius's banquet. Otherwise, you peasants would never get to see my son again for the rest of your lives. Caleb spat on the ground. Anyone who gave less than $100 in gift money doesn't deserve to eat at our table. I'm going to grad school in Boston soon. This is the only chance in your lives to get close to someone as brilliant as me. I'd advise you not to be so ungrateful. Hearing this, some of the more hot-tempered relatives couldn't take it anymore. One of them slammed his hand on the table and shot to his feet. Who the hell do you think you are, Caleb Chen? I know exactly what you are. You're useless trash. I've never seen anyone throw a party before the results are even out. What a shameless way to scam people out of gift money. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. My mom and Caleb's faces turned bright red, not from shame, but from pure rage. Mom put her hands on her hips, ready for a fight. Fine, fine. My son's scores come out today. We'll show you right now who the real trash is. Caleb pointed a stubby, fat finger at the man who had spoken. If you get on your knees and apologize to me right now, I won't hold it against you after my scores come out. The man sneered. Then check them right now. I'd love to see what score you managed to get. My mom's voice grew even louder. Everyone here watch and be a witness. My son's score will absolutely be one of the best. With all the relatives watching, Caleb opened the score-checking website. You all better watch closely. I'm not one to brag. Besides, my major in college wasn't bad. It's not that different from what they study at Harvard, he said confidently as he typed in his login information. Finally, he tapped confirm. The results page instantly popped up. There, on the screen of his latest iPhone, a line of text was clearly visible at the bottom. Total score, 51. I smiled silently. In my last life, at this very moment, Caleb had pulled up an astonishing score of 446. It had silenced everyone who doubted him. He had even mocked them mercilessly. Now, without his so-called luck-swapping bracelet, his true ability was worth exactly 51 points. This is impossible! Caleb's face fell, and he slammed his phone face down on the table. My mom was also in disbelief. You must have typed something wrong, Caleb. Check it again. How could this be? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. My mother shrieked, looking crazed as she snatched the phone. Her hands trembled as she re-entered the login information. But the result was never going to change. A total score of 51 was an immutable fact. I thought he was some kind of genius. A 51? The man who had been arguing with them laughed mockingly. I could drop the test booklet on the floor and step on it and get a better score than that. They ignored the taunts, lost in their own world of denial, just repeating that it was impossible and checking the score again and again. Unfortunately for them, and no matter how many times they checked, they would only get one result. What a waste of my time. You must be desperate for gift money. Give it back. Give us our money back. A crowd surged forward. From the gift bag my mom clutched tightly, refusing to let go, they started snatching back the cash they had given. Don't take it! Don't take it! That's my money! She wailed, trying to protect the bag, but it was useless. Soon she was a mess of tears and snot. I borrowed $2,000 to throw this party. If you take the gift money, how am I supposed to pay it back? One man, satisfied after retrieving his $50, said, When your daughter was valedictorian, you didn't throw a party. Now your son scores a 51 and you throw a banquet? Aren't you embarrassed? I stepped far away, avoiding the chaotic crowd grabbing their money back. Hearing that comment, I lowered my head and sighed. Everyone knew my mother didn't love me. Only I, in my past life, had been blind to it. What they did went far beyond simple favoritism. When I was an undergrad, I earned a guaranteed spot in a graduate program. But my mother faked a serious illness on the day of my interview, tricking me into coming home and causing me to lose the opportunity. But in my past life, that was right when I got the red cord bracelet from her. I thought she was finally starting to love me, and I forgave her so easily. Looking at the chaotic scene, I quietly went home. I looked at the score of 446 on my phone screen. out of a possible 500. Tears welled in my eyes as I let out a long breath of relief. This time, everything was finally back on track. I could continue my studies, but I knew they wouldn't let this go. Before they returned, I searched their shared bedroom for clues. Yes, their shared bedroom. Caleb was afraid of the dark and had slept with our mother since he was a baby. Even after growing up, they never slept apart. I felt in every corner but found nothing. Finally, only the closet was left. I searched inside but still came up empty. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed something odd about a floorboard inside the closet. The board was damp around the edges with a little mold. It looked like it had been pried up and put back down, which explained the gaps that made it susceptible to moisture. I curled my finger and knocked on it. Sure enough, it was hollow. I managed to lift the floorboard. Underneath, I found a diary. To my surprise, the diary belonged neither to my mother nor to Caleb. It was my father's, the one who had supposedly died from the backlash. I skimmed through it as fast as I could. Finally, on one page, I saw the words, "Fortune swapping red cord." Just as I was about to read it closely, I heard footsteps approaching. They stopped at the front door. They were back. I quickly grabbed the diary, ran into my room, and locked the door. Just then, the front door opened. My mother and Caleb walked in. As soon as she entered, Mom threw her purse onto the sofa with a vengeance. "It must have been that little bitch's doing. Otherwise, how could it not work? You were supposed to be the star today, the center of everyone's attention." Caleb, however, was uncharacteristically silent. It seemed today's humiliation had hit him hard, but his clenched fists and flushed face screamed with fury. As my mom continued to curse me, he raised his fist and landed a heavy punch right in her stomach. A look of agony crossed my mother's face. She clutched her stomach, unable to straighten up. "Caleb, if you're going to hit someone, hit that little bitch. Why are you hitting me?" My mom finally managed to gasp. There was absolutely no resentment toward Caleb in her eyes. Instead, when she mentioned me, her face filled with rage. Caleb's dark gaze was fixed on her. "You were playing favorites with that bitch, weren't you? She's been stealing my luck this whole time. Otherwise, how could I have only scored a 51? With that, he started to sob, covering his face with his hands. "Today was so humiliating, so humiliating. It's all your fault." Seeing her precious son cry, my mother immediately began to coo at him, her face full of pity. "Don't cry, Caleb. Don't cry, baby. It's all Mom's fault, all Mom's fault." Then she brought me up again, her expression turning vicious. "Is that little bitch back yet? She must be behind this. Just watch. I'll kill her." Meanwhile, I had discovered all the secrets of the fortune-swapping red cord in the diary. Reading about the so-called backlash, I smiled in contentment. They were going to be completely and utterly ruined. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If you gain a heaven-defying power like swapping luck, you have to pay the price. Everyone who has ever worn the fortune-swapping cords thinks the parent charm is the best one because the one who initiates the swap must wear it for it to work. But whether the swap is successful or not, the owner of the parent charm will always die in the end. The unlucky wearer of the child charm in the end will not be in any mortal danger. The greatest threat to the child charm's owner comes from the malicious intent of the parent charm's owner. By the time my father discovered the secret, he, as the owner of the parent charm, had already swapped his luck. There was no going back. The only path ahead of him was certain death. He died before he could tell his precious son about it, which meant that no matter what, Caleb was going to die. It was just a matter of when. I tore the pages out of the diary one by one and shredded them into tiny pieces. Still not satisfied, I burned the scraps with a candle. I only kept one page, the most important one. It would come in handy. Outside my room, the two of them were cursing me without pause. To be precise, my mom was cursing and Caleb was echoing her. "That shameless bitch. I should have strangled her at birth." I raised an eyebrow. "You really think I can't handle you?" I immediately called my mom's phone. She picked up instantly and a torrent of curses poured out. I cut her off with a grateful tone. "Thank you, Mom. If you hadn't given me the luck-stealing bracelet, I wouldn't have done so well on my exam. I knew it. You were only nice to Caleb all these years to trick him." Hearing this, my mother instantly panicked. "What nonsense are you talking about? I never gave you a luck-stealing bracelet. Caleb, you have to believe Mom. Mom loves you so much." Before she could finish, Caleb knocked her to the ground with a single punch. After hitting his mother, Caleb was breathing heavily. He felt weak. He found it strange. His health seemed to have gotten worse lately. He used to never get sick, but now he was constantly dealing with major and minor illnesses. I deliberately fanned the flames over the phone. "Not only am I doing great in school, but my health has gotten so much better too." With that, all of Caleb's doubts found an answer. His dark gaze shot toward his mother on the floor. Without hesitation, he started swinging his fists. "I knew you old bitch were playing favorites with that little bitch. You damn whore. If my dad were alive, he'd beat you to death." He had learned it from her. My mom always called me a little bitch and told me to die when she was angry. Now she had become the old bitch in her son's mouth. My mother was rolling on the floor from the beating, her screams endless. I quietly opened my door a tiny crack. Seeing the scene outside, I felt a wave of pure satisfaction. What could hurt her more than her beloved son hating her, cursing her, and beating her? It really wasn't me. It must be that little whore trying to drive a wedge between us, my mother begged and pleaded while being beaten. Finally, when Caleb got tired, my mother was already a bloody mess. She lay collapsed on the floor, unable to move. I slowly pushed open my door. My eyes met two pairs of stunned ones. "You were home the whole time. That phone call just now was fake." My mother, lying on the floor, roared the question with a hoarse throat. I scoffed, finally tearing off the mask of compliance completely. "You two idiots. I was just messing with you." The moment they heard that, they lost their minds. They completely forgot to ask me why the luck swapping had failed. Caleb was red in the face with rage. He dragged his 300-pound body and lunged at me. Unfortunately for him, after swapping his luck with Max, his body was nowhere near as strong as it used to be. He was big, but inside, he was weak. A total paper tiger. Why else would I dare to come out and confront them directly? I just stuck out my foot and kicked him hard in the stomach. He collapsed to the ground in pain. My mother, heavily injured, let out a sharp shriek. "Ah, my Caleb, you little bitch, you damn whore. How dare you?" I sneered. "How dare I? From now on, for every word you say, I'm going to hit Caleb." The moment I finished speaking, I landed several hard blows on him. I picked fleshy spots that would hurt more but wouldn't leave obvious marks. At first, my mother didn't believe me and kept talking. "I don't believe you dare, you little bitch." But from the first syllable she uttered, the kicks and punches on Caleb didn't stop. She finally shut up, only whimpering. Caleb also started begging for mercy. "Sis, I was wrong. Please let me go." I looked at his eyes, which were filled with defiance. "Whether I let you go or not isn't up to me." He froze. "What do you mean?" Several police officers walked into the house looking around. "Someone reported elder abuse here. Who is it?" I quickly pointed at Caleb, tears instantly streaming down my face. "Officers, I'm the one who called. It was my brother abusing my mom. Look at what he did to her." When my mom saw that her precious son was about to be arrested, she wouldn't have it. Her mind raced, and she pointed her finger at me. "My daughter did it. It has nothing to do with my son." But it was obvious to anyone with eyes. The 300-pound Caleb looked defiant, while I, skinny as a rail, had eyes full of tears and grievance. Combined with my mother's guilty expression, the lead officer knew exactly what was going on. His voice turned cold. "We can identify the assailant through fingerprints at the station. If you refuse to confess, your crime will only be worse." My mother finally panicked, begging and pleading. "My son didn't mean it. He's still young, just a baby. You can't do this to him." Everyone in the room except for Caleb looked disgusted. Only Caleb acted like it was his God-given right. Facing the police who wanted to take him to the station, he showed no fear at all. Instead, he pointed at me and argued. "Well, she hit me too. Why aren't you arresting her? I immediately shot back, Where are your injuries? He pawed at his clothes, trying to find a single mark where I had just hit him. Unfortunately for him, there wasn't a trace. Seeing his look of disbelief, I was satisfied. After being reborn, I had specifically learned how to hit someone without leaving a mark. And now, it had paid off. In the end, Caleb was taken away for elder abuse and intentional assault. As he was being led away, he was still cursing the heavens, the earth, me, and the police. When my mother was taken to the hospital by ambulance, they found 3 fractures and internal bleeding. Because I submitted the medical report, Caleb's charges were upgraded. He was sentenced directly to 3 years in prison. When my mother heard the news in the hospital, she fainted on the spot. When she woke up again, her attitude toward me had completely changed. If you promise to go and get Caleb out, I'll tell you a secret, she said, grabbing my hand and holding it tight. I lowered my eyes. The painful memory of my death in my past life was still vivid. I yanked my hand away without hesitation. I retorted, The secret you're talking about is the luck-swapping red cord. I already know. Before she could even ask how, I gave her the answer. But from the very beginning, the one I wore was just a normal red string. I never once put on the child charm you gave me. She was stunned by my words. Then she started screaming at me again. You little bitch, you were faking it all along. You put on such a good act before, I really thought you loved me. Turns out you never trusted me. It was all an act. I closed my eyes. What I didn't say was that I really did trust her once. Was her plan in my past life really so flawless? Not at all. It was just that I was so desperate for her love back then that I blindly refused to believe she was using me. All my hopes for her died in my last life. I came to the hospital today with a purpose, of course. I opened my bag and took out a piece of paper. This was the one page I had saved from my father's diary. I threw the paper at her, my voice flat, just like my feelings for her now. You recognize this handwriting, right? It's my dad's. She skimmed the page. Her face immediately turned deathly pale. How is that possible? How can the parent charm wearer always die? You must have made this up. You must have. She frantically grabbed a piece of fruit from the bedside table and threw it at me. But I was no longer the child who would take a beating or a scolding without fighting back. With one simple sentence, I shattered all her defenses. You're the one who gave the red cord to Caleb. In other words, you're the one who killed him. Tell me, how many years do you think he has left? Words can be weapons. She saw Caleb as her entire world. How could she accept the fact that she had indirectly killed him? A stream of tears rolled down her cheeks. As if she had lost all hope, she broke down and sobbed. I didn't bother with her anymore and quietly walked out of the hospital room. My legal records aren't tied to hers. From the day I was born, she resented me for being a girl. She registered me under my deceased grandparents' household. On my birth certificate, the parents section is blank. To this day, my legal status is officially orphan. She never wanted to acknowledge me as her daughter. This time, I didn't look back. Thinking about it, our mother-daughter bond was severed the moment I was born. Now there was only one loose end to tie up. The next morning, I went to the City West First Prison. Led by a guard, I entered the visitation room. Through the glass, Caleb still looked resentful and bitter, but there was a hint of fear in his face now. The red cord on his wrist was gone. I didn't know where. When I asked him about it, he just sneered, Beg me, you little bitch. If you beg me, I'll tell you. I shook my head. None of that matters anymore. I actually already knew. He had ripped the cord off and thrown it away in a fit of rage on his first day in prison. After everything that had happened, he no longer believed in any luck-swapping bracelets. You know, I tied the cord you guys gave me to Max, and I have you to thank. He's very healthy now. Thinking of my little dog, Max, a gentle look instinctively appeared in my eyes. He stared at me like an idiot, then started frantically pounding on the glass. The veins on his neck bulged as if he was about to jump out and attack me. I delivered the final blow of despair. All wearers of the parent charm will die in the end. Watching him go crazy after hearing the news, I was extremely satisfied. For the rest of his days, he would live in constant fear and worry. just waiting for death to come for him, not knowing when. This was my final punishment for him. I wanted him to be ruined, disgraced, and miserable for the rest of his life. After being reborn, I figured out something else. The cause of my death in my past life wasn't just the red cord, there was a human element too. In my last life, I hadn't agreed to work as a janitor at Caleb's company. I had found a low paying job on my own. I suddenly went to his company because I got a call from my mother asking me to deliver a file. How could it be such a coincidence that the company, which usually had strict security, would suddenly let in a long fired employee that day? And that he happened to be one whose wages were withheld and he was carrying a knife to get revenge on the boss? And that he just so happened to get into the records room, which was controlled by security guards? And that between me and Caleb, he accidentally killed me? When all the coincidences happen at the same time, it's no longer a coincidence. It was a premeditated murder. In our past life, Caleb swapped his luck with mine and became a winner. They were afraid I would discover the truth and even more afraid that I would seek revenge. So they set up this trap intending to eliminate me for good. My so-called mother, due to emotional distress, suffered a relapse of a head injury and went insane. She just mumbles her son's name all day and can't understand anything anyone says. She was sent to a psychiatric hospital, never to come out again. And Caleb will be tormented for the short remainder of his life. I bought a train ticket and set off on my journey to continue my education. Before leaving, while packing my things, I found the leftover child charm bracelet. Max's health had long since recovered. He no longer needed it. I don't know how my father got it or where it came from, but I know its only end is destruction. With a snip of the scissors, the red cord was cut. Along with it, all the grudges from 2 lifetimes were severed. And I, with Max by my side, am about to embrace a brand new future.